my name is Atif Choudhury. I am one of the founders of Diversity and Ability. And this is the beginning session of conversation about why we're doing this. What is intersections of inclusion and business itself? Why does it have to be successful? What does successful mean? There are big questions around this. There are commercial reasons why we need to be successful. There's sustainability to those commercial reasons that are sustainable. That's not really why you're all here. You know, I don't imagine that at all. Although it's helpful and it's relevant, but I don't think that's why you're here. I think why you're here is because you care. You care about participation. You care about making participation sustainable. And that's what we're going to hack. What does it take to do that? So I am going to tell you a little bit about me. I am a guy who grew up in South London in a big giant council estate called Thamesmead. If anyone's from Thamesmead, I'll be really excited. So I left school at 16. Bit wayward, as many of us are growing up there. But we found a way, and we found a way of walking each other home into a better world and building it. Not everyone did, because we're born into realities. Some of those don't have the same starting point as everybody else. This is a word that you guys have come to terms with much more in your work, in your life. Equity, or inequity. So we're learning more about that now. It's odd that we find these words and we think about these words when sometimes it's all around us. Yes? And many of us just live it. And we've got such richness to bring to that living it, that sometimes we're afraid to say it, even when we're leaders. Sometimes especially when we're leaders. Yeah? Because we've got this far. When you have to do more in a workplace because you're a woman or you're gay or black, and you're hardwired to share less. So we need to change that, because all of that is internal intelligence. It tells us what makes it easy to get more representation. What makes it easy for a generation not yet born? So I hope when I'm talking to you and you guys can ask questions and we get into the heart of this, that we don't stay in HR speak. I know it's comfortable and it gets our jobs done, but we are also sons and daughters of people. Yeah, we're parents of people. And so that, I hope, really stays in this room, the role that we have as loved ones. Because it really will take that to get us into a space that's more about values and participation. So who here has heard the word intersectionality? All of you, yeah? All right. So it's not a new word, right? But let me ask you, how many of you would have heard the term, say, 10 years ago? Okay. So it's perhaps a new word, right? Okay. This is not a quiz, so no worries about, it's okay for us not to know. May I just ask, roughly, who would have coined the word? Anyone? Shumley Crenshaw. Good, look at that. Listen to that. Wow, look at that. Okay. So, again, no points. But at a guess, when did Kimberly Crenshaw coin the word?
30 years ago.
Say again? 30 years ago? Yeah? Close? Late 80s, bang on, yeah. I said 1988. So I want us to think about that. Just for a moment. I'm going to use a strong word here. Anti-racism. You all heard that. Yeah? Would you say that the organizations that you're in were thinking about that 10 years ago?
No.
Would you say it's a value that we all have? So I might touch on that. It's a powerful word, but I'm going to move us out of it gently. So racism isn't just interpersonal. It's not just good or bad people. But for many people it is. It's good or bad people. And we need to fix the good and bad people. We need to fix the bad people to become good people. And for other people it's that, yes. But it's also systems, structures, ideas, science even. Yeah? The rules of which we participate the world in. And this is anti-racism, recognizing that is part of the issue rather than just bad people. Now that's not new to you guys. I don't think so. Not to anyone in this room. But the term anti-racism, anyone know who came up with that? Anyone? Many of you know her name, I imagine. But that's okay. So in a race, if you're talking about America, but you can apply it to many parts of the world, possibly even UK, if not, especially UK. But she said, in a racist society, it's not enough not to be a racist. You have to be anti-racist, yeah. This was Angela Davis. She said this in 1972. So I want us to think for a second. A black woman says something in 1972. Another black woman writes something in 1988. It takes 30 to 50 years before we get to hear it. Why? Now, it's all around us. There are women saying things now that a generation might not hear. Our generation might not hear it. So we've got to dig deep. We've got to recognize that intersectionality is not just a word. And sometimes organizations, they do it all the time. They just say it as if peppering the word in magically makes it appear. You'd be amazed, and I'm sure folks will relate to this, how many times we do speaker events as if doing the speaker event has strategically put it in place. It won't work that way. But it is important that we're talking about it. In fact, it's very important and it's exciting that we're talking about it. So we've got to figure out how do we make participation work rather than it's about black people, it's about disabled people, it's about gay people. It's recognizing what is healthy communities. And what do healthy communities do when they feel safe enough to kill shame? I've got a critic. So that's what we're going to touch on. I'm not going to delve too much on that, but I do invite you all to join me on this conversation, and it will be hopefully a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, because folks are navigating discomfort every day. There are everywhere you go, there are folks navigating discomfort on the way to work, to the work, on the way home. So we can do better because we can act on that. We can say, right, yeah, I can feel that a little bit. But what I'm going to do is something more interesting. I'm going to feel it, I'm going to do something with it, and I'm going to make new friends when we do it. So, I didn't really get into this, but I really ask you all to look at the work that we do. I've got an amazing team, and I always say, look, the truck doesn't load itself. Nothing I do gets to happen without the team that's here. And they're going to be around us when we do the breakaways as well with Perry's team. But we're a community-led social enterprise. The team is made up of lived experiences. And what that really means is you all have lived experiences. A lot of the team under a medical model, a vast majority of the team would under the medical model would be disabled. But it's not the label that matters here. It's the barriers that people face and how we innovate and build solutions around it. But how we recognize, and I'm going to use a word that might be new or maybe not, but how we recognize that we can't leave people behind. Our own liberations are dependent on it. So what that phrase you might hear, or I hope you do, or you get to be part of it, you're doing it now, is collective liberation. How do we recognize that we are in a healthy society when we're not just waiting for LinkedIn to tell us what to do? Yeah? But we know as our leaders, we know as our parents, our loved ones, that we're making it safe for us to talk about it. All right, so what we do is we work with organisations around the world. We are excitingly part of something really exciting for Transport for London, which our team is leading on called Equity in Motion. We're helping TfL become an organisation that anticipates that marginalised learners, workers, loved ones, transport users want to make this safe. They want to be an organisation, I'm going to use the phrase anticipatory welcome. We anticipate you're going to want to use this well, and we welcome it. We're not going to react and say we did this badly and next time we should do it better. We're not going to ask people to keep exhausting themselves to say, I wish you did it better. I wish you recognise that I'm here and I've always been here. We are going to anticipate, and we're going to build a welcome to that. We do get to do this work with folks like the United Nations on their roadmap and how they recognise disability inclusion doesn't come safe even if you're in the UN. It doesn't come safe when people of colour are in a competitive environment, excited to be in the UN. So how do we get that to a space that recognises equity isn't a conversation just for white people to have, but it's to recognise where socioeconomic power might prevent participation. Am I making sense? Okay, good. All right. So Yeah, so this is a quote I really like. I sometimes use it because, can you see it, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. It's by Audre Lorde, and I guess, I hope, has anyone seen that quote before? Okay, so again, Audre Lorde is an incredible writer. Bell Hooks, I'd really ask everybody to look at some of these are writers I struggled to read, by the way. I didn't read till I was a teenager. I was in social care as a kid. And everything I read, I memorized, but it was things that moved me, that stayed with me, things that hugged me. And Bell Hooks was a writer who hugged me when I read her work. Martin Luther King's writings would hug me, and I don't know how to explain that, but when you're reading things that make you feel safe, and you're struggling to read, you keep reading. And Audre Lorde's work I came to understand much later, and as a kid I would have thought, this would have hugged me too, So I guess that's it. It's no such thing as a single issue struggle, because we don't live single issue lives. Do you feel that? Cool. It's hard, isn't it? Right? But we're not just one experience. This is intersectionality. Yeah. Sometimes people think intersectionality is about women, or they think it's about black people. But it's not. It's about everybody. That we all face barriers. And some of those barriers we can talk about, and some of them we can't. And there isn't just one single issue struggle. But the difficulty we have, can I throw it to the room? What's the difficulty we might have with this quote? Or maybe I'll try and make it more gentle. What difficulty we might have in realizing this in the workplace?
Section that we're all one, that we are all one.
Thank you.
I think it's very only the track.
Yeah.
Well, then, can't see this being but
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, just to answer that, and we think you reflect on target setting in organizations, thinking about targets and having diversity targets and often looking at it through one dimension, multiple dimension. So it's simplifying the whole lived experience that people are feeling you're setting quotas and top.
Absolutely. And who are we doing quotas and targets for?
Yeah.
There's power there, right? Yeah. Great. Any other? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar around power. Now, in marriage, it's controlled for a position of privilege.
Yes.
Therefore, some of these issues tend to be under the radar, and what we see as issues that need to be considered in the first.
Yeah. Very real, no? We're still in spaces where we're watching organizations saying, we've got lots of women here. They're not saying which women. I think that sometimes they're desperate to say not which women. Sometimes it's about optics. And some, it's not. They just hadn't thought about it. They just inherited loads of things because, again, that structural barriers, those system barriers have changed policy, changed thinking. So if we're not careful, we're not asking those questions, we'll be doing the work again and again, but we'll lose and exhaust people with lived experiences and go, your intent here might be good, but you're not digging deep enough. Where's the humility? Where's the debt we owe to differences? Because it informs our practice. Yeah? It's hard work, though. But it is great work. Please.
Just as that mentor, it also it's a way to use sex and priorities. And you'll set the priorities so if your priorities of feedback, then sometimes book schedule. And so somewhere else in the year felt with about it.
Yeah.
Happen with that, repleasing itself, but actually this issue's that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a really good timing, actually, of a conversation. I want us to think about something as well. I want to sort of, as we do this, and Perry and I will do this in the hope that we really draw out of you what you want. And again, I'm going to go to draw out of you beyond your jobs, beyond compliance, into spaces that you're already here with, care. But yeah, I sometimes say this. Diversity is about counting people, while inclusion is about insisting people count. All I'm really saying here is you can have optics all day, but it's digging a bit deeper to go, what is it that we're looking for here? Yes, we're looking for talent. Of course we are. But talent shows up in so many different forms. I wish there was more time to express this part, but it is all around you. But the most famous stories we talk about are when they're famous. We say, despite that, they did this. Despite that, they did that. I get it even with me. It's really lovely. Despite that, he did this. But maybe I did it through it. Maybe they all did it through it. And maybe there are people who are just not famous and they may never will be. But we owe a difference and a debt to that difference. But what we don't do necessarily is look for it. We don't anticipate it. It's in your offices right now. A quiet person, not easy to have lunch with. Alan Turing was a quiet person, not easy to have lunch with. Yeah? It changed the course of World War II. Greta Thunberg, and a quiet person, not easy to have lunch with. So we all would say we knew them and we wished we stood with them. And it's around us now. But some folks we lose before that ever gets to be real. And some folks we really make famous. And some folks deserve it. And some folks we've got to think, okay, but where's your equity in this? What makes this exciting is your starting point. What makes this exciting is what you achieved. But what really makes this exciting is your starting point. Does that seem fair? All right. So that is intersectionality. We're in a part. We're touching on it. We're going to dig a bit deeper into it. It's not working. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a little bit about me. And I guess here, this is really a slide really about the ways we do show up, right? In ethnicity, religion, class, gender, disability, sexuality, age. I think about the work I get to do and the team that I have and how incredible moving it feels for me sometimes. But I also know that the team is looked at as you're a specialist in disability because of the narrow position we have. Yes, we are, but that's not what we're camping out on. We're here to address barriers. Our work is on disablement. But really, it's not even that. It's on participation. I think my job is to strengthen participation and the sustainability of that participation. But it's unnatural that companies will come to say, we need help with disability. Well, yeah, we'll help. But that's not the work. The work is barriers. Does that make sense? All right. So I'm just going to touch on this. And sometimes I want to ask, does it make sense? Because I'm not sure myself. No, I am absolutely sure. But what I'm looking for is, do you feel this? Okay. So when I was younger and I'd come to understand I was dyslexic, it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, nearly 30, that I could prove it. But I knew it in my heart. But the only role model that was around, I don't know why I was dyslexic would know, it's Richard Branson. And I get to do entrepreneurial things, I guess, in a way. But I want to plant a thought that Richard Branson and I are both dyslexic, and he runs businesses, and I guess I do as well, right? And if we scored exactly the same on a dyslexia RIT scoring test that says what level of dyslexia you're at, if we scored exactly the same, then the only thing we have in common is a beard, right? Right? Because it won't be. Our equity points are different. They're so different that the ability to be a leader, to say, I am, there aren't, and I say this with sadness, there aren't enough brown people talking about neurodiversity as leaders, saying, I run an organization, I do this. We're seeing more, and I'm really glad to be part of that, more people coming forward to say, I'm this good, not despite it, but through it. But I want to reclaim it through my homeland. I want to reclaim neurodiversity through the eyes of Bengalis. Not how we learn to be more English, but what does it mean in our communities and our identities and our ways of communicating? All of that matters if we're to build a safer world for people to talk about these things. I am gently moving into a space that I want to see if this is exciting for you. Medical models, social models. Anyone ever heard those conversations? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to ask us really to be brave here. Would anyone like to just say what a medical model, social model might be? It's okay. That's great. Robin. That's a great... I don't. Robin, am I volunteering you?
There's no
Great. Okay, so let's just show of hands. How many of you heard of medical model, social model? What it might be? Roughly, I'd say about a third, yeah? Okay. Does anyone sort of feel, and it's okay, because it just tells me where I'm at. Confident as someone, is everyone confident to say, I think it means this versus that? Yeah, please, can I? Would you like to? Or you could, please.
So the photo is that, when somebody says, for example, they've had an ADHD, you need to make full proof that, and that essentially issue is with the person and they need whilst the social model is that how we can ensure that the environment is conducive for that person to not to putting the onus or the issue on the person, if that makes sense. So social model looks at ways in how we can adapt our surroundings, ways in which we can adapt our language or how we operate to ensure that everyone, but mostly those who have physical disabilities or neurodivergent, can thrive.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
It's maybe not as good as an explanation as that, but I do hear a lot of people who say, I've got ADHD, I've got OC, I've never been medically and diagnosed. I hear other people talking about their own kind of, is it preferences or when haven't been diagnosed. But when they talk about that, I do hear behind their back people belittling it a little bit. Oh, the self-diagnosed dyslexic. Dyslexia or OCD or whatever it might be. And that worries me because I hear it because it hasn't been that affirmation through the medical.
No, thanks, buddy. Absolutely right. Can you all hear each other, by the way? I want to make sure. Okay, you're going to hit me again, please.
To kind of standpoint, and that's going back to systemic barriers. I was recently observing a tribunal and somebody was sharing about depression and their experience of depression, and actually it didn't get through because there was no medical evidence.
Right. Brief.
Systemic. Still, and the structures politically and whatever, there was still systemic structures that inhibit people from sharing their lived experience of depression and neurodivergence without medical proof.
Absolutely. This is really important to think on this, what's being said here in this room, right? It's really important. Going back to the same thing of equity, not just equality, but equity. That if you are going to say the same thing, if you have to do more in a workplace, then you're hardwired to share less. So a person's going to come forward to talk about mental health. Why? They may go for job protection, job risk, and mental health loss. What is it in them for doing it? Then the leadership can go, well, we didn't know. That's right. The leadership is not psychic. It doesn't know. This is part of your hacking. The leadership should not be expected to be psychic. But if it relies on a medical model, it won't be any more psychic. It won't be any more inclusive. It won't. So the social model is, what is our anticipatory welcome here? If it's harder for some folks to tell us stuff, then we're going to lose. The NHS report on sadly on stillborn deaths to black women yesterday, I implore you to watch it. It's things that black women could have told you in the 80s. It's very real. Just as Kimberly Crenshaw was trying to tell us something in the 80s, we came to understand it 5 years ago. Angela Davis, it was after George Floyd's murder, we came to understand anti-racism. This information is around us. The social model is telling us what are the barriers that people are facing and why should they have to prove it. I'm really conscious of time, but I'm going to just speed up a little bit. If we have a flower and it's not growing properly, we don't shout at it. Shit. We don't tell it, prove to me you're a flower. We move its environment. Yeah, we do that with people. We can do that, right? So that is the medical model. I'm going to just use an example of glasses because I find that sometimes that's easy to do. But can I get a volunteer? Is someone short-sighted? Anyone? Okay. Oh, okay. You've got contacts on. Okay, great. So I don't know how many people have got glasses and contacts in this room. But I'm going to say this quickly, hopefully not too quickly, but if it's not clear, ask me. We don't look at people with glasses and say, can you do the job? I know if I can use Christina. Christina, I don't look at Christina and go, oh, I wonder if she's got a contraption on her face. Is this going to work? No one does that. We have made and normalized something so comfortably that it no longer means anything. Yeah? But if I ask Christina, I'm not going to quite get you, but if I took your glasses, if I may, could you drive home without your glasses if I've got these?
Well, probably I can, but probably you don't want me to.
Okay. All right. Boom. So Christina has a perfectly good solution. It's so good, it does not risk injury. Yeah, I do something. I take her glass away and I'll do it again. I've put Christina in a disabling situation. And it's emotionally disabling, it's unsafe. Thank you, you're brilliant, brother. And we can do better. So what are the barriers? And why is it that some people have got to exhaust themselves, risk their jobs and their mental health in order to get that need? We can do better. A wheelchair user is using a device to move around. If they are meeting access needs, what's the disability? So we teach on this. We encourage you all to look at this, because this is where leadership will change for a new generation and a new century, and they'll be ready. Our team is, and I'm part of this, advising and helping the NHS in different parts to make a future fit NHS that moves into the social model. In truth, there's more to this. There's more complexity. There's how we build a biosocial model. But for now, that's the social model. We change the environment. It's not on the individual to be better. It's on the environment that we alter to make it easier. What are the barriers they're facing and how do we change that? So, brings me swiftly on to barriers. And you guys have been great, by the way. This is not easy, and you create space, because I'm going to talk on trauma. You're going to talk on trauma in your own way. It's a really powerful word. Yeah? I truly believe that talent and trauma lives in the heart of the best things in the world. But we separate them, because structurally we've been taught to. That trauma lives over there till it's famous. And talent is what we're here for, because we're HR people. All right. So trauma is an intersectional barrier, financial. It got touched on here earlier. Bertie's really touched on it. Or you must have this, or you would say that, or, you know. The most disabling thing on earth is not ramps, whether they're there or not. It's attitudes. The attitudes that stop us doing things ourselves, but mostly it's about the attitudes about people we don't even know. When you apply social economics to that, you have two of the most disabling things on earth: bad attitudes and social economic realities. That makes it hard. The other is stereotyping, which was a conversation I had earlier about stereotyping and work that's being done on that. Cultural norms, microaggression. It's just the way we do things around here. Yeah? We're not asked if it's any good or not. We just did it. Access to a diagnosis. This is a big one. Yeah? It costs a lot of money. I'm not convinced that diagnosis is the answer to a lot of things, but I think it's helpful to have a safe conversation about how we might learn. Yeah? I've always said a diagnosis is a place for a heart that has nowhere else to go. So sometimes we're desperate for one, but it doesn't necessarily make it accurate or right for us. But it's a start, at least for some people to be seen and legitimized, as Bertie was looking for. But for others, it's a place just to say, look, I am safe in this ERG. I'm safe in this community. I'm safe and I'm getting safer. Okay, access to resources and opportunities. You guys are fostering that. I can't do that on my own. My team can't do it. You guys are that change. We're going to hack all these things as we go through this in the most delicate way possible. And so, I'm on my last, I think I've timed it reasonably well. I'm on my last slide before I hand over to Bertie, but I want to check something, which is, when you do this work, have on your minds these things. Take pictures of these things if you want, but have this when you hack, that you have these realities. The stories I'm saying, it takes 50, 30 years before people hear the voice of black women. It matters. It really matters when folks say we've been doing it all along, when they haven't. And so how do we look at this and say recruitment, onboarding, line management, communications, policies, progression? How would you approach these things with intersectionality in your minds? That it's not just a word that suddenly makes it all happen, but it's hardwired into the thinking you're doing, just as it's hardwired in people not to tell you stuff, even when you're asking. I think of that as myself as a leader. Yes, I have an experience, But my invitation, if I'm not careful, is an imposition. And it does not matter if I've had marginalized experiences. It's where they're at. So I have to think about it a lot. It's not enough for me to say my door's open, because that doesn't make me understand how hard it is to walk through it. What is important is, what do I think about that may have made that hard to walk through it? What do I go and do as a practitioner or as a leader or a policymaker or just as a colleague to me? So these are really strongly on your mind when you do the hack. How would you approach the following of intersectionality in mind? The social model in your mind as well. I don't think you can separate social model from intersectionality. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Maddie and Perry again. And this is your list again at the bottom as possible. Thank you all. Thank you for.